Why your dog never forgets your smell. Arthur had been in the hospital for 11 days. Not a dramatic 11 days, no crisis, no surgery requiring the particular kind of courage people write about afterward. A hip replacement planned for months, handled efficiently by people who had done it many times before, followed by the slow and slightly humiliating business of recovery in a place that smelled of disinfectant and institutional meals and other people's difficulty. He had been patient about it. Arthur was a patient man. 73 years had given him plenty of practice with bureaucracy, with weather, with the particular unpredictability of the human body past a certain age. He had sat in the hospital bed and read his books and done his exercises and waited, without complaint, for the 11 days to end. What he had not anticipated was how much he would miss the dog. Rocket was a 9-year-old Border Terrier, small, wiry, opinionated, with the kind of face that looked permanently skeptical, and the kind of loyalty that made a mockery of that expression. He had been Arthur's dog in the specific way that some dogs become one person's dog entirely, not through exclusion or deliberate preference, but through the slow gravity of a bond that forms over years of shared mornings and long walks and evenings spent in the same chair, with the same lamp and the particular companionable silence of two creatures who have run out of things they need to say and are comfortable with that. Arthur's wife Margaret fed Rocket and walked him twice a day while Arthur was away. Rocket ate, he walked. He returned to his bed each night and slept, as far as Margaret could tell, without difficulty. He waited by the front door every evening from 5 o'clock onward. Margaret reported this to Arthur on the phone each night, matter-of-factly, the way she reported other household facts, the weather, the post, what she'd had for dinner. Arthur listened and said nothing particular in response because there was nothing particular to say, and because something about it made his chest feel tight in a way he had unexpected and didn't quite know what to do with. On the 11th day, Arthur came home. Margaret had the car, the bags, the careful business of getting him from the passenger seat to the front path with his new hip and his careful new gait. She had the key in the lock. She was saying something practical and kind about the steps, about taking it slowly, about not rushing anything. Arthur was listening. He was also aware, without being able to say exactly how, that something on the other side of the door was aware of him. And then the door opened, and Rocket was there. He did not wait for Arthur to fully enter. He did not perform the polite greeting of a well-trained dog, acknowledging a returning family member after a reasonable absence. He went directly and entirely to Arthur, past Margaret, past the bags, past everything in the hallway that was not Arthur, and pressed himself against Arthur's legs with a force that was quiet and complete and absolute, and stayed there, trembling very slightly in the particular way that is not fear, but the body's attempt to contain something it does not have the vocabulary for. Arthur stood in the doorway of his own house, one hand on the wall for balance, one hand resting on the dog's back, and did not say anything for quite a long time. Dogs navigate the world primarily through scent. This is not a metaphor or a simplified approximation. It is the organizing fact of their experience. A dog's olfactory system contains roughly 300 million scent receptors, compared to approximately 6 million in the human nose. The region of their brain dedicated to analyzing and processing smell is proportionally 40 times larger than the equivalent region in ours. They do not see the world and also smell it. They smell the world first, and everything else is organized around that primary understanding. Your smell, specifically, is one of the most complex and information-rich objects in a dog's sensory environment. It contains your hormonal signature, traces of your diet, indicators of your stress levels, and health, your emotional state at any given moment, your recent history compressed into chemical information. It is not static. It shifts hour by hour and day by day in ways that your dog tracks with a precision that no human instrument has yet been able to fully replicate or map, and it is yours. Distinctly, irreducibly, specifically yours, in a way that does not blur or generalize or fade. Researchers studying olfactory memory in dogs have found that dogs can identify their owner as scent with reliable accuracy after separations of months, in some documented cases, years. The scent does not become indistinct over time, the way a visual memory might soften at the edges. It remains precise, particular, intact, waiting, in some sense, for the specific thing it belongs to. A dog who has not seen you in 11 days has not forgotten what you smell like. They had been waiting, patiently and specifically, for that exact thing to return. What Rocket had been doing in those 11 evenings by the front door was not simply hoping in the vague way we use that word. He was monitoring the door itself. Carried traces, the complex layered ghost of Arthur's particular scent, 11 days old, still present in the wood, and the threshold and the specific quality of air that moved when it opened. Each evening, it failed to carry what he was waiting for. Each evening, Rocket returned to his post and waited again, without diminishing, without adjusting his expectations downward. On the 11th evening, the door opened and Arthur was there. Everything Rocket's nose had been holding as an open question for 11 days was answered, completely and at once. There is a region of the dog's brain called the piriform cortex, the primary processing center for olfactory information. Studies using functional MRI imaging on dogs have found that the scent of a familiar bonded owner activates the caudate nucleus, the brain's reward center, more reliably and more strongly than almost any other stimulus, including food. The smell of the person they love does not merely register as familiar, a neutral recognition, a simple match to stored information. It registers as reward, as rightness, as the world returning to the configuration it is supposed to hold. This is what Rocket felt when Arthur came through the door. Not recognition in the ordinary sense of the word, not the mild, pleasant sensation of something recalled from memory, recognition in the way a compass responds to north. Immediate, total organizing. Everything else in an instant around a single certain point. Arthur spent the first 3 days home, mostly in the armchair, moving carefully, sleeping more than he'd expected to. Rocket spent those 3 days within arm's reach. Not anxious, not the vigilance of a dog afraid of another disappearance, scanning every door and window. Something quieter and more settled than that. The particular closeness of a creature who has had something withheld for 11 days and has now decided, without drama, not to take it for granted. On the 4th morning, Arthur woke before Margaret and sat in the kitchen in the early gray light with his tea and the slow returning certainty of his own house around him. Rocket was at his feet, chin on his paws, breathing the long, slow breath of a dog with nothing left to wait for. Arthur put his hand down. Rocket pressed into it. They sat together in the quiet of the early morning, two old friends who had been apart and were now, simply and completely, no explanation required, no performance of reunion. The smell was right. The person was here. That was enough. It had always, in the end, been enough. If this video stayed with you, share it with someone whose dog was waiting for them when they came home. And if you want to understand what your dog is telling you every day, in every quiet moment, subscribe to Silent Paw Pack, because they speak more than words. We just have to learn how to listen.